Violence flares up in Turkey, where a string of deadly attacks have hit various police and army targets, as well as the US Consulate in Istanbul. Also in our headlines this hour, there are fears Israel is about to force-feed a hunger-striking prisoner after making the practice legal. Rights groups equate the practice to torture, while the inmate's family say it will threaten his life. A man is in critical condition after an exchange of fire with police during a rally in the US city of Ferguson, marking 1 year since the killing of an African-American teenager by an officer. Around the clock, across the world, this is RT International. My name's Ewan O'Neill. Welcome to the programme. Turkey has been rocked by a wave of deadly attacks. Well, this shootout followed a nighttime car bombing of a police station. Officers came under attack while investigating the blast. Gunfire was also exchanged immediately after that bombing, killing 1 policeman and injuring 3 more. 7 civilians were also hurt. Now, in the country's southeast, a roadside bomb went off, killing 4 police officers. In a separate attack, a military helicopter was shot down, leaving 1 soldier dead. And again, in Istanbul, 2 gunmen targeted the US Consulate. The assailants, a man and a woman, opened fire on the building and were then engaged by police in a shootout. 1 person needed medical attention after the attack. Reports say the female suspect was also injured and later detained by security forces. She's been identified as a member of a banned far-left group. The male suspect reportedly fled the scene. The authorities have not commented on a possible motive for the attack. We talked to Middle East analyst Hussein Bagchi to hear his theories. The first of which is linked to the US-launched airstrikes against Islamic State from one of the Turkish military bases.
Until now, the Turkish government was very resistant not to open the military bases. So Turkey is becoming again more and more a patron-client relationship field. They consider this a Turkish-American joint collaboration, and this increasing anti-American feelings certainly in the society will be the case in the coming days.
Indeed, Turkey's military relations with the US have been ruffling feathers across the country. Around a year ago, 3 American Marines were targeted by a Turkish nationalist group. Shouting "Yankee, go home." The attack happened next to where a US warship was docked following NATO exercises in the Black Sea. The assailants briefly managed to put sacks over the heads of the sailors who were wearing civilian clothes. The Marines escaped, fleeing back to their ship with all shore leave for the cruise subsequently cancelled. A Kurdish link is also being investigated in connection with the consulate attack. Almost 2 weeks ago, Ankara launched airstrikes against Kurdish militia in Iraq, something the US saw as, quote, the right to defend itself. Here's Hussein Bagchi again. He thinks the move could eventually backfire on the government.
Some even consider this as a revanche against the Turkish state. And on the other hand, the Turkish state is determined, as Prime Minister said yesterday, to fight terrorism until the end. So there is another tension, another increasing war declaration between 2 sides. There will be an increase of terror, a fight against the terror, and the civilians in general will suffer under this. It will be not good neither for Turkey nor for the Kurds in the final analysis.
Well, to put the situation in some sort of focus, unconfirmed reports say the Turkish air raids, which began in July, have killed nearly 400 members of the Kurdistan Workers' Party. The strikes brought to an end a fragile ceasefire that had been in place since 2013. Israel is reportedly preparing to force-feed a prisoner for the first time since it adopted a law allowing the procedure last month. And the man expected to undergo it is a hunger-striking Palestinian lawyer. Mohammed Alan has been refusing food for over 50 days. He's resorted to the desperate protest because he has been under arrest since November without charge. Fears of force feeding being carried out have sparked widespread condemnation too.
وضعه منهار صحيا وإذا ما طبقوا بحقه هذا القانون ربما يؤدي ذلك إلى قتله وإلى تعذيبه. جسمه لا يتحمل حتى طعام قسري. بالتالي يعني إسرائيل تحمل مسؤولية.
كلكالين فعلا على أخونا. الإطعام القسري إلى الأسير محمد علان هو عبارة عن عملية اغتيال بكل ما تعني الكلمة معنا.
Well, let's go over to our other news wall here and take a look at how force feeding actually works. The force feeding of procedure first sees the subject strapped to a chair. Special tubes are then inserted through their nose all the way down to their stomach. Some detainees describe the feeling as like a razor blade being shoved down their throat. Eventually, food is sent down the tube. The UN describes this practice as an inhumane treatment, saying it amounts to torture. Earlier, we talked to Haddad Ziv from the group Physicians for Human Rights. She says that there are other strategies which authorities can resort to instead of force feeding when dealing with a hunger striker.
There's other ways to solve hunger strikes. Authorities can negotiate, as had happened in the past, for conditions under which the hunger striker will feel that he or she are able to stop the hunger strike. And it seems that now authorities don't even think about negotiation about the rights of the detainee. There's already 36 prisoners who are on hunger strike as a show of solidarity. There are 3 scenarios, 2 of which are horrible. The good scenario is that the authorities will reach an agreement and he will be released and stop his hunger strike. The 2 terrible scenario is one, that his situation will deteriorate and be irrevocable, and the other bad scenario is that he will be force-fed.
The force-feeding procedure has long been on the public radar. The practice was used on the hunger-striking inmates in the US-run Guantanamo Bay prison camp. The controversy surrounding the practice pushed rapper Mos Def to volunteer to be force-fed, just to see how bad the procedure actually is. You may find the pictures we're about to show you disturbing.
I really couldn't take it.
Well, the full clip can be found on our website, rt.com, along with other stories we've covered on force feeding. An African-American man has been shot by police in the US city of Ferguson, which became a scene of anti-racism protests last year. The crew of RT's Rupley video agency caught on camera the moment that police claim led to them firing at the victim. Here you can see how our men exchanged gunfire. According to security forces, at least one of them fired at law enforcers. Police then shot the man, who was taken to hospital and underwent surgery. The shooting came during a rally marking a year since unarmed black teenager Michael Brown was killed by an officer. The victim of the latest shooting was identified as a friend of Michael Brown. One activist claims he was arrested for filming the man lying on the ground in a pool of blood.
It's a crime scene. Back up. Man, get him some help. Back up. Get him some help. Back up. Still want to get the man some help. You see him breathing, man. You see he's still alive. He's still alive.
Following the shooting, police used tear gas to disperse the crowd that remained at the scene. Several people were detained. The gunfire that led to the chaos erupted at the moment the local police chief was giving an interview to journalists promising a peaceful night and zero violence.
And we just want to be as patient as possible.
Message to those who are looting.
RT's Manuel Rapolo was close to the scene of the shooting and witnessed the panic that followed.
Clearly, that was a very tense situation. It caught us by surprise, a rather frightening situation for our entire team. We know that at least 2 unmarked vehicles sustained gunfire. here on West Florissant, where we're standing right now, just down the street. This is the same street where only a year ago those riots broke out following the death of Michael Brown. The entire RT team here on the ground, we had to take cover behind the police vehicles after several rounds of gunshots were heard. Police have told the handful of demonstrators to please go home while they conduct this investigation. There's SWAT teams here in the area looking into exactly what happened.
Since the death of Michael Brown, more than 1,000 people have been killed by police across America. That's according to a non-profit organization called Fatal Encounter. Well, on the map we're about to show you could see the density of those killings right across the US. Activists against racial abuse, DeRay McKesson, says little has been done to tackle the violent approach of law enforcers.
We've seen is that the police are killing people at record numbers. There have only been 9 days in America in 2015 where the police haven't killed someone, and as of today, they've killed 700 people. A year ago, people were still they still believed that Ferguson had a problem. They had not yet understood that in America there's a problem with policing. There have been some small cases of progress, very small, with like body cameras and some oversight committees being instituted in some cities. But the police have probably been the least responsive since the movement began. They have not owned the fact that they're killing people who should not have been killed, and they have been the most disappointing part.
The killing of Michael Brown led to the formation of a massive anti-police brutality movement. Commemorations of the deadly shooting have been held over the weekend and continued into Monday. Rallies against police injustice were held across the US and even further afield, for example, in London. Moving on, hundreds of protesters took to the streets of Bahrain this weekend, calling for the release of jailed human rights activists. The Gulf monarchy has been gripped by unrest since 2011, with the authorities usually quick to crack down on demonstrators. Another prominent Bahraini activist who has even met the Pope was thrown behind bars after he returned from a summit hosted by the UN. Dr. Maitam al-Salman was released only after the world body weighed in. He's the head of the Religious Freedom Unit at the Bahrain Human Rights Observatory. And his arrest came just days after the country's only independent newspaper was suspended by the government. We asked Dr. Salman why he was detained.
I was accused, unfortunately, by the government of Bahrain for inciting hatred against the regime. What I called for was to create equal citizenship between people from different grounds, from different backgrounds, regardless of religion, regardless of social or political background. If we look at all the procedures which were done by the government and all the actions within the last few months, we have witnessed tens of arrests of people who are freely expressing their political view and the necessity to have a peaceful democratic transformation in Bahrain. I believe the closure of Al-Wasat newspaper and my arrest are in the same line of actions which try to limit the space of freedom of expression.
Well, lots more news and views still to come this hour, including a former US intelligence chief says Washington willfully ignored warnings of the rise of Islamic State following its decision to support radical forces in Syria. Also, life through a lens, a blind photographer tells us how he's able to produce images like these and what he hopes to achieve by printing the pictures which can literally be felt by those who can't see.